Hello, once again. This time we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, the game. Oh boy, the NES memories of that horrible game. But this one looks a lot different. I mean, granted, it's in alpha mode right now, so to say anything that's going to be there is going to be in the game is far from the truth right now. Everything is nothing but speculation because, again, it's in alpha mode. But from what I've seen, I've already seen a huge problem already with it. And that is, you could either play as one of the 7 nameless camp counselors or as Jason. The teleporting, seeing through buildings Jason versus the generic human, no superpowers, no enhanced vision, no extreme durability, no weapons, camp counselor. If this is going to be an online only game with no single player campaign, it's going to be an absolute disaster. Because there's going to be a line for people wanting to play Jason that's going to go out the building, around the block, and 3 miles down the road. Whereas, who wants to be a camp counselor? Well, no one. You don't play a video game to be a generic everyday person. You play it so that you could do something different. You could be something that you're not in real life. I mean, that's one aspect of reason why people play video games at all. I mean, in what other world can you jump on a turtle, punch bricks with your bare hands while you're jumping, do all that, save a princess, and get some cake, and have your brother wind up marrying her? Well, that doesn't happen in real life. So, what about Friday the 13th? I mean, are they going to have a first-person campaign? They could, very easily. It could follow the story mode of the game, or your final boss could be Freddy Krueger, even. Actually, that would make a pretty good game. But I think Jason is from what I've seen, again, this is just the alpha, so I can't really say anything's definitive because nothing's definitive in that state of game building. But because of that, it seems to me that Jason is overpowered. Very much so. And the counselors have nothing to defend themselves with. I mean, yeah, you can hide, but how does the hiding work when he can see through an entire house? He'll be able to see you behind a tree. And plus, he can teleport from one end of the house to the other and keep on doing that back and forth to the point where you have no option but to just die. So, yeah, Friday the 13th seems that Jason is just extremely overpowered. And everyone's gonna line up to play Jason. Nobody's gonna line up to be a camp counselor with no weapons. I mean, if you really want a good multiplayer game, it has to be balanced. Have the camp counselors know a way to kill Jason. Like maybe going to where Jason's base of operation is and messing with his mother's grave. Maybe that can mess with him. Problem is, if this guy can teleport, well, that means that there's bound to be one person, at least one person, that's going to just sit there and post up camp right by the most vulnerable spot of Jason and just kill anybody that gets near it. That is just going to ruin the game for so many people. I want it to work. I want it to be good. Because I love the Friday the 13th franchise as a movie base. Game-wise, again, if you remember the old NES days like this old goat does, it was terrible. I mean, granted, it was a good survival. Granted, it was good at building horror because you were extremely underpowered and the only weapon you had were rocks. But it was mostly the map system and just trying to navigate through that thing that was just such a pain that I never actually beat it. I didn't beat it because it was too difficult. From what I've seen and from what I've heard from other people my age, that it's actually a pretty easy game once you understand how to navigate. Unfortunately, when every backdrop you walk through looks identical to the other, you kind of lose your place in the map, and then next thing you know, Jason's killing a couple kids all the way across the other side of the camp, and you got to get over there in a certain amount of time. But the directions that you're facing is not equivalent to the directions that you're going on the map. So you have to constantly check your map, constantly go back and forth to find out if you're going in the right direction. And while you're doing that, you're losing the game. That was the problem with the NES version. Problem with this upcoming version, it seems that Jason again is just overpowered. He has too much abilities, he's unstoppable, and if you can play as him, that's like selecting whether or not to play be an invincible person in an online game. Of course people are going to be the invincible person. Nobody's going to want to be the generic person. That's not going to work. Give the camp counselors weapons. Give them a harpoon, an axe, something. Hell, you can give them rocks. Give them rocks and just have them throw it at Jason's face. Maybe that could stop him for a few seconds where he could run away. Oh, wait, no, because he could teleport, so it doesn't matter how far you run. Again, it's really hard to really make a long video about this because, again, it's just an alpha. And the way games are designed is that alpha is pretty much the first step. Like, if you want an idea of what a game looks like in alpha, take a look at Bubsy 3D. That was an alpha. That doesn't even look like they finished the alpha. And that's where Friday the 13th, the game is. That's where it is right now. Will it get better? Well, evidently the developers of the game have decided to give us a step-by-step guide on how they're doing and how the game is looking. Hopefully they can take our feedback and implement that in the final product. I would love that. That would be fantastic. I think every game developer should do that. Come to think of it, with Facebook and social media being what it is, you can always ask the fans for feedback. Much as I anticipate feedback on my videos, as every YouTuber does. We want you to help us get better. And the only way to do that is to implement some of the ideas that you may try to bring us. A good example is screwattack.com. Their YouTube channel for a particular show called Death Battle. Now, even though I've implemented the same death battle for years and I've never ever actually seen it, as many other people have, they still try to. I mean, Goku vs. Superman 2 is a good example of what happens when when obsessive fanboys, honestly, say, oh, but this can happen. What about this? What about this? What about this? They implemented it again and it came out with the same result, but they still did it. They still went through that process to show you what would happen. I mean, it's not exactly what a lot of the fanboys wanted, but it ended in a high note because that's just more or less based on statistics, on statistical strengths and weaknesses. And maybe we can do that with video games. Implement strengths and weaknesses and look up the statistics of what people want. A good example of what people don't want in some games would be, look at Ride to Hell Retribution. That game had a lot of stuff that people didn't want. If the developers were listening to the fan base, maybe a different game would have come out. Maybe they wouldn't have had such horrible atrocities that game has committed. I mean, seriously, Ride to Hell Retribution is like a modern day Drake of the 99 Dragons. That was just one of the worst games that ever came out. Because they didn't listen to anybody. It went through development hell. But that's still no excuse to have it released in the state that it was. Let alone if it actually worked. If it worked, it was still bad. And if they would have listened to the fans during development and showed them, hey, we're trying to implement this. Do you like this? Do you not like this? Fans would have told them, no, I don't like that. I want this to happen instead. Why don't we try this idea? Implement input. Use input to make your games better. And I hope the developers of Friday the 13th actually do that. They're showing the alpha stage, which not very many game developers are willing to do. So that could be a step in the right direction. Perhaps this can be one of the greatest games that comes out. Maybe. We don't know. Hopefully it is. But if it's not, they can't blame us, supposedly. They could be doing it as an excuse. In all actuality, if they know their game's going to bite the big one, they could say, well, we tried to put your input into it, and this is what you guys did. They can very easily do that. Now that I think about it, that's very probable. But, again, for a company to show its alpha stage is very rare. And it's something we should be happy with. I'm just personally feeling that maybe Jason is overpowered and the camp counselors are underpowered. And I know that's how it's supposed to be, because there's really no other way to write Jason into anything without him being very, very strong, very powerful. I know Mortal Kombat did a good job, but at the same time, everybody in Mortal Kombat has their strengths and has their weaknesses. Maybe they can implement one of the Friday the 13th movies where one of the camp counselors has psychic powers and is able to actually take down Jason. Or maybe the camp counselors could use strength in numbers and try to get to a safe spot. And once they get to the safe spot, it sets up a trap for Jason. As a matter of fact, that could be the camp counselor's special ability, setting up traps. But unfortunately, with teleporting Jason, that can be very difficult to do. Maybe instead of having him teleport to right where you are, maybe have him do it like a hazy teleport, where he teleports in a generic area, but he doesn't know exactly where the person is. And none of this see-through building stuff. I don't want to see that too much, because that just makes him, an almighty creature that cannot be stopped, which is, that's what Jason's supposed to be, but still, not in a video game. You want to balance the characters out a little bit, restrict them a little. You can still make them, almost impossible for the camp counselors to defeat in hand-to-hand combat. You can make them invincible to that. You can make them invincible to regular melee attacks by the camp counselors, where all they can do is just break free and run away. But when they run away, maybe Jason can be forced to not attack that person. Just something. Again, it's an alpha, so you can't really say too much, except for the fact that the game developers are showing a lot of courage by doing this, and I really hope other game developers decide to do this as well, to show their journey along. That may also show some fans of what goes into making a game. Once they realize that perhaps making a game isn't the easiest thing to do, which it's not, maybe they might learn to just kind of ease up on some of the things that they're critical about. Because I do know that some game fans, some reviewers can be critical over the stupidest things. I mean, sometimes it's just ridiculous. Other times they're right on target. But I am going way off subject. The reason why I'm going on so far away from the original topic is because there's just not that much to talk about. Alright, well, stay tuned for the next episode, which will be coming out after this one, obviously, where I talk about a game that I didn't think was ever going to happen. I thought these people were done making games, given off a censorship issue that they had to correct for localization purposes in Europe. They were furious. They were highly upset that their creative curve was pretty much stomped out. And I thought that they were never going to step foot into the world of video games again. And evidently I'm wrong. And I, for one, am ecstatic about it. Well, catch you next time. Be good to each other, everybody. Bye-bye.